Hey everybody, here we are in Color Collage again. Gosh, we're on block 7, which is awesome. Once we get this block done, we're going to be ready for the applique block, which I'm excited to get into because I figured out about myself. Peter and I were having a discussion. I figured out the reason why I get bored with quilting is repetitive blocks. I want to do a sampler quilt. I always want the blocks to be different every time. But Peter, you can do like repetitive blocks. They don't bother you so much, do they?
I would say that they would. No, they'd bother me.
Do they? Okay, so you're the same. Yeah,
I could probably do the same block twice.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, 3 times, and that's the max.
Right.
The first time, figuring out the piecing. The second time, it would be a little bit better than the first. By the time I did it the third time, then it'd probably be a decent looking block.
Right, right. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
And I think this has been a good block of the month because you do make the block 4 times, and by the time I make it the 4th time, it is a pretty block. But I'm done making blocks. I'm ready to do something more fun and interesting. But this is a cool block. The block that we're making this month, you've already made, so it has a little corner like this, which you've made this corner before in the previous months. So I'm not going to go through how to make that particular block. But you just square it up to the dimensions she gives you, make it exactly the way she shows you in the book, and you'll be fine. So we're not going to go over that because you've made that one before. But let's start with talking about the fabric. So you use 4 fabrics this time, like always. You usually use 4 fabrics. This one is called a Sea Mist Solid. You won't be using any of these fabrics again if you bought the applique pack. So this is what I have left. I've got a significant amount of fabric left, and I'm kind of pondering what my next project's going to be to go with. I probably will make this quilt a little bigger, maybe. I don't know. I'm thinking all kinds of things. I may make some table runners and things to go with it. I love the fabric. But anyway, these are the 4 fabrics you use: the Sea Mist, the Lime Dappled, the Blue Laurel, and the Flora. Whoops, I said that backwards. Blue Laurel and Flora. And you're going to cut everything like she says, except those B squares. Remember, we have those B squares that when we do the B squares, they go into half square triangles. So I like to cut them at 2.5 instead of the 2 3/8 that she tells you. So, whenever it has a 3/8 inch measurement, if it's a half square triangle, if you just go up that little bit, then you've got some ease to make those come out right. So that means on the Sea Mist Solid, on this solid one, it actually has you cut like 2 strips that you cut into squares, and then some you use exactly as the 2 3/8 inch measurements, and some you use as the half square triangles. So these triangles that you set here on the side of the half square triangles, you do have to cut those 2 3/8. So that means you need 8 squares cut at 2.5 inch and 16 squares cut at 2 3/8. Okay, which will mean nothing to you unless you have the pattern, because those dimensions won't make sense. But anyway, when you do that, when you get to this particular piece where it says 2 pieces that are 21 inches long, you need 8 2.5 inch squares and 16 2 3/8 inch squares. If you do it that way, you'll be perfect. Okay? If you've got questions, email me, call me, I'll fix you up. So that's the fabric we're going to use. We're going to use it all up, and obviously I've got plenty left here of all of these. Now, if you didn't buy the applique pack, you will need these colors in the applique. If you got a, gosh, I can't even imagine doing that. You'd have to put the fusible on it. You're going to have to cut all the pieces. You're going to have to do it. I hope you bought the applique kit because it's so much simpler. Everything's already done. We're going to just press it on and stitch around it. So anyway, that's how you make it. First block you make is this one. You have a square in the center. It's just a flat square. But then you have to make an hourglass, which I think I made you one. Where did I put it? I made an hourglass, Peter. Oh, here it is. I was getting ready to square it up. So you make this hourglass. You make this little hourglass block, and that what goes in it. This is a fairly simple block, but the way you get these triangle pieces is you cut a square and then you cut it into 4 pieces. So be sure when you measure those squares that you have to cut out in the Lime Dappled, the Sea Mist Solid, and the Blue Laurel, that you cut that square to the dimensions that they tell you. and then you cut it diagonally twice. So you start out with a big square, then you cut it, and then that gives you all these lovely little triangles.
Oh, fun.
That you get to sew together. Okay, so you have these 3, which is only 3, but I end up with 4, right? So here's the deal. I want it to look like that. I want a lime dappled opposite one of these and the 2 laurels on the side. So here's the problem. If I sew this together wrong, that's what I get. And it is super, super, super easy to make this mistake, okay? So when I set this up, I make sure that I lay my pieces exactly the way it shows in the book that I'm going to sew them. Because if you sew the wrong, you would think right, left, right wouldn't matter, but it absolutely does. And I've made like 48 of these, not in this particular one.
That's not an hourglass.
Right, exactly. I've made like 48 of these one time for a quilt, and I did every one of them wrong, and I had to rip them all out and start over, and I didn't have enough fabric, and it was one of those catastrophe things. So I have one going like this, and I have one going like this. I'm trying to line them up a little better. Going like, whoops, gotta get it right, Cappy. One like that. So I make sure I lay this out exactly the way it's supposed to be on my table. And then I pull these away from those, because I'm going to sew those together, and I'm going to sew these together, okay? And then that gives me this. See, that matches, and this matches. But this does not. See, it just won't work. That's wrong. But it's real easy to make this mistake. Now this one's okay. So I'm good there, but this one is wrong. So that won't fit together. And then you press your seams to the side, like she says. I'm going to press to the dark side. So both times I press to the dark laurel side. And then when you sew this together, you can match that point real nice in the center. And then when you flip this over, I press it open, just because that seam doesn't have to nest with anybody. So I just pressed it open because there's a little bit of bulk in there. And then I'm going to square that up to the dimensions that this square needs to be. I'm going to put that on my ruler, and I want you to see what's nice about an hourglass. Peter, follow me if you can. Is you put this line, the diagonal on there, and you match that to the corner, to the corner, to the corner, to the corner here. All those corners land exactly on the point. And then when I cut that out, I'm going to have a perfect square that's going to fit into my piece, and the points are going to be in the right place. If you don't get this when you sew it together, it may be your pieces aren't cut right, or your 1/4-inch seam is not the correct dimension. So, you know, it's an hourglass. You would think, oh, that's super simple. Those are easy to make. They are, providing you cut everything right. If you don't cut those original squares out that you cut diagonal both ways, you're going to be in trouble. You're also sewing on the bias on all of this, so it tends to want to stretch a little bit. So I'm going to use my best press or my starch or flat or whatever I'm using, and I'm going to press that as I sew. So when I press this seam over, I use a little starch. Then when I get ready to sew these two together, I get ready to use a little more starch. So I layer my starch so that it makes a nice finished block. And then I'm going to put those 3 blocks together. Basically, you have 3 blocks. And Peter, if you want to focus in on that's the finished block, you can see the hourglass ones on each side, and then the half square triangle with the other half of a triangle on the corners. And then just your solid in the middle. And it's really cool because it creates that square in a square look in the center without having to do a square in a square.
Would you prefer to do square in a square at this point?
No, I do not like to do square.
Oh, you like the hourglass better?
I like the hourglass better. Yeah, I would like. And there are more than one way to make the hourglass. We're doing it the way she says in the book, okay? But I really like that this block finishes up with a square to square, and I didn't have to make a square to square to get it to look that way. So you need to make these 4, and then we'll be ready for applique. So I'm super excited to get to this point. block 8 is the big center block that goes in the center. So that means when we get there, then the next part after that is we're going to be doing layout. We're going to start putting it really together.
And you probably got the applique kit.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't dream of doing this without the applique kit. No way. And you know what? Now that you say that, I don't remember seeing it in my tub. So this is how I keep myself organized. All my fabrics are in here. My oopsies are in here, so when there's been like little leftover pieces or whatever, there's just little oopsies in there. You know, this piece right here, this one that's cut the wrong way, that one, she's going in here. Because, you know, I
might need that later.
Might need that later. I don't know. I might put it on a border or put it on the, I don't know.
Quilt label.
But see, here it is. There's my applique kit.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. So everything in there that I'm going to need to do the applique around here and in the center, because these flowers here are appliqued, is in this bag. And they're laser cut and they're pre-appliqued. So what I'm going to do when I get ready to put them on.
I think all quilt kits should have laser cut applique kits.
Yeah. So there's already the sticky on here. And that you just peel that off, and I'm going to place it where it needs to be and stick it down. Now, we're going to talk about when we get to this place, not to anticipate, but we're going to talk about needle turn applique versus raw stitch applique. There's lots of ways to applique. But yeah, totally. I'm not cutting all those teensy pieces out. No way, Jose. I got the kit because Nancy Rink did a great job creating that for us. So that's block 7. Hallelujah, we're moving right along. It's a 10-part block of the month, so we're well past the middle way. So this is Color Collage.
What were you telling me this morning about Christmas?
Yeah, exactly. We're filming this at a time that we are closer to the coming Christmas than we are to the Christmas past. So, and Nancy's thrilled. She's doing a little happy dance back there. She loves Christmas. So yeah, we're you know, get your Christmas presents done. Maybe this will be a Christmas present because you would get it done in time and have time to get it quilted and bound to give as a Christmas gift. Wouldn't that be a great Christmas gift? I know, Peter, you want to be on my Christmas list gift, but I'm not thinking this is what you get.
I'd probably get something from the oopsie bag.
Yeah, I'll go here. Merry Christmas.
Man.
Figure out what to do with
Here's
the
my
oops
scraps.
bag.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Here's my
little oops
scraps.
bag. So
What
anyway.
if quilters did that? What if we started a new thing where, like customers of Always in Stitches, they bag up their scraps and then give them to their friend for Christmas?
Yeah, you get an oops bag. You know what though? I'm telling you, some
How
oops
fun would
bags
that
could
be? Or like if you swap,
cool.
you know, if you know somebody that does the same amount of quilts as you do, and you swap oopsie bag or scrap bag for scrap bag, that'd be fun.
That might be fun. Scrap bags, yeah, have a certain size, like a.
Have to have a minimum.
Minimum. Well, I think I want bigger than this. I think I want like a 9x12 bag, and you could like pass them, say, okay, here's one, bring one, take one, leave one, kind of like a book library, but or the little
scrap library.
A scrap library.
A quilter scrap library. That's
brilliant.
Awesome.
Quilter scrap library. We might have to play with that idea. Who knows what we'll come up with. Well, anyway, hopefully you're having fun with this. If you need questions answered, you can email me, Cappy@alwaysinstitches1.com. Call us 317-776-4227. Whether you bought the kit with us or not, I hope you're playing along, and just have a happy stitching day wherever you are. Bye-bye.